There is a playbook for how empires die. It's not a secret. It's written in the ruins of Spain, in the faded glory of Britain, and in the collapsed foundations of the Soviet Union. It's a 7-act tragedy, and every superpower follows the same script. Right now, the United States is on Act 5. We are deep into the narrative, reciting lines that have always led to the same final scene. We tell ourselves our story is unique, that our ending will be different. But the script doesn't allow for new endings. The plot is dictated by debt, arrogance, and decay, forces that do not negotiate. This is not a prediction. It is a spoiler. And the final acts are already being written. Superpowers don't collapse by accident. They follow a sequence, a 7-stage pattern. Spain followed it. Britain followed it. The Soviet Union followed it. This video maps that pattern. We'll trace the first few stages, but the crucial part is the end, where we'll pinpoint the exact transition into the final, irreversible phases, the point we are likely approaching now. This isn't about predicting doom, it's about understanding the script. If this data-driven perspective helps you make sense of the world, then this channel is dedicated to that work. We'd be glad to have you with us. Chapter 1. Anatomy of the Imperial Collapse. Imperial collapse begins not with invasion, but with economic exhaustion. The empire overextends through global military bases, multiple wars, unkeepable promises, and unsustainable debt. Initially, the decline is invisible. The currency still works, and the military wins battles. But beneath the surface, the foundation cracks, resources are misallocated, productive capacity shrinks, and the best minds leave. Then comes the acceleration. Allies hedge their bets, enemies test boundaries, and the reserve currency status erodes. This leads to the pivotal moment where strengths become fatal vulnerabilities. The once global currency floods back, causing inflation. The overstretched military becomes a burden. Promises become empty words. This is not theory, but documented history, as seen in Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union. They made the same decisions we are making, believing their power was permanent, overextending militarily without counting the true cost, and debasing their currency to pay for what they couldn't afford. They refused to accept reality until the collapse was unstoppable. The pattern is consistent and predictable, indifferent to exceptionalism or national pride. The following analysis will show how it happened 3 times in the exact same way. Chapter 2. Spain, the original blueprint, 1500-1700. Let's start with the first global empire. Spain, from the 1500s to 1600s. This is the original blueprint for imperial collapse. After Columbus reached the Americas in 1492, Spain became the first true world power. They conquered the Aztec and Inca empires, seizing control of the richest gold and silver mines ever discovered. By 1550, Spanish galleons were bringing home 200 tons of silver per year. By 1600, over 400 tons annually, an amount almost incomprehensible today. Spain controlled the money supply of Europe. The Spanish real was the global reserve currency. Everyone wanted Spanish silver. Everyone needed it for trade. And this is where the pattern begins, with a country that controls the world's money and believes that makes them invincible. King Philip II, ruling from 1556 to 1598, had more money than any monarch in history. And he spent it on empire, on projecting power, wars, and dominance. Stage 1, military overextension. Spain fought wars everywhere, simultaneously, against the Ottoman Empire in the Mediterranean, against France and Italy, against Protestant rebels in the Netherlands, a war that lasted 80 years, and against England's navy, culminating in the disastrous Armada. By 1580, Spain had military commitments on 4 continents. The cost was staggering. Half of Spain's entire revenue went to the military. And still, it wasn't enough. They needed more troops, more ships, more supplies. Stage 2, currency debasement. The Spanish crown couldn't pay its bills with taxes alone. The silver was supposed to make them rich, but it all flowed out faster than it came in. So they did what every failing empire does. They debased the currency. They started mixing copper into silver coins. A coin that was supposed to be pure silver became 50% copper, then 75%, then mostly copper with just a silver coating. The face value stayed the same, but the real value plummeted. By 1600, Spanish coins contained barely any silver. Merchants stopped accepting them at face value. Foreign traders demanded real silver, not debased coins. Inflation exploded across Spain. Stage 3, debt spiral. Spain borrowed constantly, from Italian and German bankers, from anyone who would lend. They borrowed against future silver shipments, against taxes not yet collected. By 1557, less than 20 years into Philip's reign, Spain declared bankruptcy. They defaulted, restructured, and kept borrowing. They declared bankruptcy again in 1560, again in 1575, again in 1596, 4 times in 40 years. Each time they promised reforms. Each time they went right back to borrowing and spending, because the military commitments couldn't be abandoned. Stage 4, loss of productive capacity. Here's what people don't understand about Spain's collapse. They had all the gold and silver in the world, and it destroyed them. When you have unlimited money flowing in, you stop producing. Why grow food when you can import it cheaper? Why build ships when you can buy them? Why manufacture goods when you can purchase them abroad? Spanish nobility considered actual work beneath them. Manufacturing declined. Agriculture stagnated. All the wealth flowed outward to import goods from other countries. The gold and silver that came from the Americas went straight back out to pay for French wine, Italian silk, Dutch goods. Spain became merely a conduit. Wealth flowed through them, but none stayed. Nothing was built. Nothing was created. By 1600, Spain was producing almost nothing of value. And when the silver mines began to deplete in the 1620s and 1630s, the entire system collapsed. Stage 5. Social decay and imperial fragmentation. With the economy failing, everything else fell apart. Crime exploded. Beggars filled the streets of Madrid. Productive citizens emigrated. Spain was left with bureaucrats, soldiers, and priests. No one creating wealth, everyone consuming it. By 1640, Spain lost Portugal. By 1650, the Netherlands, their richest territory. By 1700, the Spanish Empire was a hollow shell, economically dead, militarily exhausted. They went from world superpower to secondary power in less than a century, and they never recovered. The descendants of the conquistadors are now a tourist destination. That's what imperial collapse actually looks like. Chapter 3. Britain, the empire where the sun never set, 1900-1970. Let's jump forward 300 years to Britain in the 1900s, the empire where the sun never set. At its peak in 1920, Britain controlled 25% of the world's land and ruled over 400 million subjects. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency. Every major trade contract was in pounds, every central bank held British bonds, and London was the world's financial capital. Like Spain, centuries earlier, Britain believed its dominance was permanent, rooted in superior character and institutions. But it was already following the same pattern, stage by stage. Stage 1, military overextension. By 1900, Britain had military commitments everywhere. India, Africa, the Middle East, China, the Pacific, the Caribbean, Canada, Australia. It had to defend territory on 6 continents, while rivals, Germany, America, Japan, rose to challenge its supremacy. Then came World War I. Britain faced a choice: stay neutral and preserve solvency, or fight and bankrupt itself to win. It chose war. World War I cost over $40 billion, more than $1 trillion today. Britain borrowed heavily, mostly from the United States, the new creditor power. By 1918, Britain had won, but owed America billions. The debtor had replaced the creditor. They thought the empire could be rebuilt. They were wrong. Stage 2. Currency debasement. The pound, supposedly backed by gold, was crippled by wartime depletion. Massive shipments of gold to America paid for weapons and supplies. By 1920, reserves were half their 1914 level. Yet Britain tried to maintain the pre-war value to protect London's financial prestige. In 1925, they returned to the gold standard at the old rate, wildly overvalued. Exports collapsed, unemployment surged, and interest rates soared to defend the currency, strangling the domestic economy. By 1931, Britain abandoned the gold standard. The pound lost 25% overnight. The global reserve currency had admitted it couldn't keep its promises. Stage 3. Debt spiral. Britain never recovered from World War I debt. Interest payments consumed a huge share of government revenue. Then came World War II, another $120 billion in costs, again financed by borrowing from the US. By 1945, Britain owed the United States and Canada over $30 billion, more than its entire GDP. The war was won, Hitler defeated, but the empire was finished. They could no longer defend or afford it, nor suppress the independence movements rising across their colonies. Stage 4. Loss of empire. In 1947, Britain gave up India, the crown jewel, lost because it could no longer be held. Over the next 20 years came a cascade of retreat. Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, the Caribbean. By 1970, the British Empire survived only in maps and nostalgia. Stage 5. Currency collapse. The pound kept falling, each drop marking Britain's descent from superpower to regional power. In 1940, $1 equaled $4.03. By 1950, $2.80 by 1970, $2.40 by 1980, $2.30. Today, around $1.27. The world's reserve currency became a regional one, once dominant, now ordinary. Britain clung to symbols of greatness: UN Security Council seat, nuclear weapons, special relationship with America, NATO leadership. But everyone knew the truth. Britain was a former power living off its past glory. From 1914 to 1970, just 56 years, Britain fell from global superpower to regional middle power. The decline was irreversible and complete. Chapter 4. The Soviet Union. The fastest collapse. 1945-1991. Now, let's look at the most recent example. The Soviet Union. From 1945 to 1991, the fastest imperial collapse in modern history. After World War II, the USSR emerged as one of two superpowers: nuclear weapons, massive military, control over Eastern Europe, satellites in space, and global ideological influence. They believed they were the future. Communism would bury capitalism. The Soviet model would dominate the world. History itself was on their side, or so they thought. For 45 years, they competed with America, matching militarily, building more tanks, missiles, and troops, spreading their ideology worldwide. But beneath the surface, the economy was dying, strangled by central planning and rigid ideology. Stage 1, military overextension. The USSR spent 15-20% of GDP on the military, triple America's share. They tried to match US technology and global reach, despite an economy a fraction of the size. They fought a decade-long war in Afghanistan, propped up Cuba with billions in subsidies, and supported Syria, Vietnam, North Korea, Angola, Ethiopia, and Nicaragua. Everywhere America had influence, they countered it. The cost was unsustainable for an economy that wasn't growing or producing wealth. Stage 2, economic stagnation. The Soviet economy stopped growing in the 1970s. Oil revenue kept them afloat temporarily, but nothing else worked. Factories made low-quality goods no one wanted. Agriculture failed despite fertile land. Technology lagged decades behind the West. By the 1980s, the USSR was importing grain. A nation with vast farmland couldn't feed itself because central planning kills innovation. Nobody works efficiently without personal incentive. The system was broken at its core. Stage 3, currency collapse. The ruble was never real money. It couldn't be exchanged internationally. It had no value outside Soviet borders. Even citizens preferred US dollars on the black market. The government paid for imports with gold and oil since no one accepted rubles. When oil prices collapsed in 1985 and gold reserves fell, they ran out of real money, the kind the world wanted. Stage 4, loss of empire. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, suddenly, shockingly. Eastern Europe broke free in a wave of revolutions. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, East Germany, all gone within a year. The Soviet buffer zone vanished. The government couldn't stop it. They were broke, the military immobilized, the system paralyzed. Stage 5, complete collapse. On December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. From the fall of the Berlin Wall to total dissolution, just 900 days. No invasion, no war, only economic implosion. The currency was worthless, the government couldn't pay workers, the republics declared independence. A superpower with 30,000 nuclear weapons collapsed from internal failure. The pattern repeated: overextension, stagnation, currency decay, loss of empire, collapse. Same sequence, same result. Different century, different ideology, same mathematical inevitability. And here's what should keep you awake at night. The United States is following the exact same pattern, stage by stage. Chapter 5, America, following the pattern. 2025, the United States of America. 2025. Let's examine the stages honestly, without patriotic delusion. Stage 1, military overextension, complete. The US operates 750 military bases in 80 countries, and personnel in 150 more. We defend Europe through NATO, Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Australia. Fight proxy wars in Ukraine, counter China in the Pacific, maintain a Middle East presence, and guard global trade routes. Our $850 billion defense budget, larger than the next 10 nations combined, isn't enough. Equipment is aging, recruitment is down, maintenance deferred. If China invades Taiwan while Russia advances and Iran destabilizes the region, we couldn't respond everywhere. Overextended, like Spain, Britain, and the USSR. Stage 2, currency debasement complete. Since Nixon ended the gold standard in 1971, the dollar's value rests on faith and force. The money supply has risen over 400% since 2000, with $6 trillion created since 2020. The dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power. We no longer dilute coins. We print unlimited digital money. Different method, same result. Debasement. Stage 3, debt spiral complete. US debt, 36 trillion, 120% of GDP. Annual interest nears 1 trillion, exceeding defense spending. We borrow to pay interest, to fund operations, to sustain the illusion of solvency. Deficits run yearly, $1.8 trillion in 2024 alone. This is the definition of a debt spiral. Stage 4, loss of productive capacity, complete. America designs and consumes, but barely manufactures. In 40 years, our industrial base moved to China, Mexico, and Vietnam. We import $800 billion more than we export each year. We depend on foreign supply chains for medicine, electronics, rare earths, even military parts. We can't make antibiotics or advanced semiconductors domestically. Dollars flow out as Spain's silver once did, and when the world stops accepting them, collapse follows. Stage 5, social decay complete. Trust in institutions is collapsing. Congress approval 18%, media 32%. Crime, homelessness, overdoses, and division rise as fertility, health, and life expectancy fall. Infrastructure crumbles. Education declines. Yet people wave flags and pretend it's fine. It's not. We're not beginning the pattern. We're deep into it. Stage 5 of 7. The Soviet Union fell here. So did Britain. And now it's America's turn. Chapter 6. Stages 6 and 7. What comes next? Stage 6. Loss of reserve currency status. This begins when allies diversify away from your currency. Global trade shifts to alternatives, and foreign-held dollars flood back home because they're no longer needed for commerce. It's happening now. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, are building payment systems outside the dollar. Central banks are buying record amounts of gold. China and Russia trade in yuan and rubles. Even Saudi Arabia now accepts yuan for oil, breaking the petrodollar system that upheld U.S. dominance since the 1970s. The cracks are visible. The foundation is weakening. Stage 6 has begun. Stage 7, collapse. Not gradual decline, sudden implosion. The Soviet Union vanished in 900 days. Britain lost its empire in a generation. Spain faded more slowly, but the end was the same. When the reserve currency fails, debt becomes unpayable, the military unfundable, and allies turn away. It doesn't unravel gently. It collapses brutally and fast. Every empire believed it was different. Spain, Britain, the USSR all thought their power eternal. They were wrong. Today, America repeats the same illusion. We're different. We have the dollar, technology, global influence, but the pattern doesn't care. It's mathematical, not emotional. Economic laws, not national pride, determine fate. You cannot print wealth. You cannot sustain empire without industry. You cannot escape the cost of debasement and debt. Once stages 1 through 5 are complete, stages 6 and 7 are inevitable. The sequence is locked in. The momentum irreversible. The only question left is when, not if, the fall arrives. Conclusion, the mathematics of collapse. Maybe we have 10 years, maybe 5, maybe less. But the pattern is clear. Collapse is coming and it won't be slow. It begins as a currency crisis, igniting a debt crisis, then political and social breakdown. Overnight, the superpower becomes a warning. The reserve currency becomes regional. The empire becomes a memory. It's happened 3 times before: Spain, Britain, the USSR, and the pattern says, we're next. Since 2020, we've accelerated every stage, printing trillions, deepening debt, expanding unsustainable wars, hollowing out production, and tearing society apart. We're not walking toward collapse. We're sprinting into it, shouting exceptionalism as we near the edge. History shows the sequence never lies. Maybe we'll reform. Maybe we'll rebuild. Maybe this time will be different. But the mathematics say otherwise. The same forces that destroyed every empire, debt, debasement, decay, are now fully active. The answers aren't in the future. They're written in the past. And the past says, prepare. Stage 6 has already begun. Stage 7 follows, mathematically, inevitably, no matter what we believe about ourselves. The pattern doesn't lie. It never has. And it never will.